an attempt basically to suppress uprisings and riots, because the French state recognized very early on that a great deal of political protesting is ultimately due to hunger. And so the price of a baguette always has to be at a certain level in France. Yeah,
that's
very
good.
interesting.
Good. We should do that in the UK.
Absolutely. If everyone had a baguette for nothing, like very little money, we're gonna at least not be on the streets and soup kitchen it all the time. There's a soup kitchen on the end of my street, mate. I mean, this is Hoxton Zone 1, right? So yeah, this is not great, bro.
No, that's not great.
Anyway, we're live, everybody. We're live. We're back after a 1 week hiatus where we all took a break. But welcome everybody to the first show of the year, Brainfood Live on Air. We're going to try and do this every week because it is our duty to give you a platform to have a conversation on the stuff we care about in recruiting. So thank you all for joining us. I hope you all had a very good holiday break and you're refreshed and ready to go for 2023. And today, by the way, our purpose is to do some Mystic Meg crystal ball gazing forecasting for what's going on. So I know what people are going to say. They're going to hammer us for saying, yes, no, you can't possibly know what's going to happen. Yes, we know we can't possibly know, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. We've got a bunch of superb commentators to come on who are going to give their best overview as to what's going to happen this year, and then give us a projection, give us some kind of guess, so that we can have a bit of entertainment and think about. So anyway, good to have everyone here. Let's do some sound checks as usual. We should be going live on Crowdcast. I think we are. If you can hear us from Crowdcast, please let us know in the chat. Sort of stream there. Just let us know whether the audio and visual is okay. We are broadcasting live on LinkedIn, I believe, where we've got hundreds of people hopefully watching this. So if you can hear me on LinkedIn, do let me know whether you can hear me okay. And we're still live on Twitter, would you believe? Twitter and Facebook, we're blasting this out. So fantastic to see us out there. Okay, let's just crack on. As always, we have to thank our sponsors for Brainfood Live. One of the things that amazes me all the time is that every time we run a show, we get a sponsor stepping up and say they want to do it. At this time, no fail. It is a return. I don't think Greenhouse were there last year, but Greenhouse have stepped in for 2023 in a big way. You're going to hear a lot about Greenhouse this year from Recruiting Brainfood. They are, of course, one of the leading ATSs out there in the current moment. They're also the ATS that powers OpenAI, which is the company of the moment. So a very interesting product for everyone to get involved in. If you're looking to upgrade an ATS in any way, greenhouse.io or greenhouse.com is the product you need to check out. Okay, let's get on with the show, folks. We have Adam Gordon back with us. Adam, we're just chatting about France and your holiday. Great to see you. It looks like it's a sunny day in Glasgow there. So hopefully you've had a good break and you're refreshed for the year ahead, mate.
Absolutely. I've been resting up for this particular show.
Good stuff. It's a big one. I reckon we're going to go a little bit over time. So I know sometimes you need to like zip out a free on the dot, but
I'm fine.
This one might bleed on, I think, a little bit longer because we've got a lot to talk about. Without much further ado, bring our guests on ASAP. But let's have your perspective as a grand overview, 2023. How do you see it comparing to 2022? What are the things you're going to see more of or less of in comparison to what happened last 12 months?
I mean, this is going to be a little bit, it might come across as a little bit bland, but I think there's three key themes for 2023. And they're not brand new themes, but we're going to see more and more of it. One is integration, better integration between products in terms of tech, and therefore a more personalized and joined up candidate experience. So integration, personalization, and the third one is automation. I think we're going to see more things getting automated. And I could probably have said the same thing at the start of last year, but I believe that we've just had an extra year of maturity, and 2023 is going to be some big things happening.
I agree. I think automation will occur on two levels, and you and I have had a little bit of a conversation around the edges around this, in the sense it'll happen at a corporate level where companies will stitch together these systems and these processes will get automated. But I also think it'll happen at the individual level as well, where recruiters will just like adopt some consumer level tech and start automating away off on their own bat. And you'll see efficiencies at both those levels going on there, which is going to be super exciting to see. So interesting times, but also worth thinking about the implications for recruiting work. I mean, a lot of us are thinking, yeah, recruiters will be fine, it'll be this, that, and the other. I think recruiters will be fine, but we have to continue to understand where our value is going to be added, when a lot of the efficiency type stuff that we used to do, the information carrying that recruiters often still do, will soon be done by systems more effectively than a human being might do. So we recruiters have really got to upskill and think about those things as well. So very interesting for us to review. Okay, let's bring some of our guests on. We've got loads to bring on, folks. So what we're going to try and do is like rotate them on and off. So I hope everyone's all right with that, because we can't squeeze everyone on screen straight away. I'm going to see whether Kate Shoesmith is here with us. She is our first guest. Oh no, I don't think she is. It could be Katie Shoesmith. All right. Neither of the Kates are here. So if you can hear me, Kate, and you're somehow like kind of strangely named in your registration, let me know in the chat, and then we can bring you on. But absent Kate, let's swing straight away to look like super far ahead into the future. Oh, there she is. Kate is there. Kate with a... Oh, there she is. Kate Johnson. It's not Kate Johnson. It's just Kate. There we go. I was just thrown off. I should give more clear instructions that when you register on Brainfood Live, you've got to use your full name, because it's a kind of a fortunate problem, but we're popular enough now that there's actually lots of people with the same name coming on. There she is. Kate, how are you doing? Great to see you.
Well, Happy New Year, guys. Nice to see you both.
Great to see you.
Happy
Kate,
New Year.
For the folks who don't know you, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Kate Shoesmith, and I'm the Deputy Chief Executive at the Recruitment and Employment Confederation. So we're the UK professional membership body for the recruitment industry, and globally we're obviously members of the World Employment Confederation as well.
Fantastic. And it's such a great pleasure to bring you onto a show like this, because a person with your type of industry, so your industry overview, might be able to give us a bit of perspective as to what you think the staffing sort of world is going to look like in 2023. What are your thoughts on this? I know it's a huge term to sort of grasp, but having come through 2022 and now moving into 2023, what is the mood amongst the membership there? What are you seeing in terms of new business formation? What are you seeing in terms of, are they growing as businesses themselves in terms of hiring more recruiters? What is the real deal there, Kate?
Yeah, sure. So I'll approach this mostly from a UK perspective, but a lot of our members, so we've got over 3,000 companies that are incorporated in the UK in membership. A lot of them will also have a global footprint, or at least an international footprint in some way, shape and form. So they'll often be supplying overseas, or they'll have offices, depending on their brand, working in other jurisdictions as well. And it is interesting, isn't it? One of the things that you always do, you're always tempted to do when you start a year, is you spend a bit of time looking back at all of the stuff that the data's shown you previously. And one of the things that becomes very obvious to all of us is that there's no easy way of predicting what's happening in the jobs market sometimes. But what we do know is it's often, it varies. It goes between being a lead indicator for the economy to a lag indicator for the economy, what's happening around employment. So to explain what I mean by that, when we came out of the lockdowns from the pandemic, the jobs market exploded. And there was this huge, we termed it a sugar rush following the pandemic, where that pent up need to hire from businesses went through the roof. And recruiters were saying to us, having started 2021, not entirely certain what was going to happen, and being quite slow out the blocks, because we were still in UK at least, and pretty much all territories were still in lockdown. 2021 turned into recruiters' best ever year, and then thinking, well, that can't continue. But lo and behold, 2022 starts, and it's still roaring ahead. And many of our members said to us that they really did have their best ever year, driven by those twin tracks of huge employer demand for staff and lower candidate availability. So looking at the data that we can see right now, the expectation is that demand is still holding strong. If we look at all of the data just pre-Christmas, the intention to hire was still very high amongst employers across the board in a UK context. And speaking to our colleagues, it feels like that's the intention globally as well. Although with an element built in of caution. And one of the things that was interesting in the pre-Christmas data is that pre-Christmas hiring spree seems to get later and later every year. So we actually saw that coming through in the end of November data, whereas you'd normally expect it August, September, October in retail terms, and it didn't. And then also, if you're looking at the supply of people, huge problem, still real tightness in the labour market across the piece, across pretty much universally all sectors, it seems. You just need to look at the news coverage that we've had in the UK over the Christmas period of what is going on in the NHS, across care, across many of our key areas. Think about tech, and you're talking about the automation and the changes that are happening there, digital skills being at the forefront of requirements. Our Prime Minister talking about why we need maths skills until the age of 18. Skill shortages are here to stay. So a little bit of a sense of this year will be the inverse of 2022. 2022 started strong, perhaps didn't end the year as strongly as it started. 23, perhaps a bit of a slower, steadier start for many recruiters is the feeling amongst our membership, at least, where demand is there, candidate availability is quite constrained still in many key sectors. So you do need your recruiters to be doing this work for you. But as the economy starts to ease, inflation starts to go back to something that might feel a little bit more normal, then 2023 finishing on a stronger level.
Can I just respond to two different things that Kate said? And by the way, Kate, that was absolutely brilliant. I love that summary. Thank you. The first one was that you said there's no easy way of predicting what's going on in the jobs market. And this really reflects a lot of conversations I have with people in talent acquisition who tell me that their biggest problem, I talked earlier about integration and automation and these generalist things, but actually the specific thing that I wanted to mention on this show is the biggest problem that TA people I know have got is around predicting what they're going to be working on next week and the week after and the week after. Like forecasting is like a chronic problem. And then the second thing, which was something a little bit more specific again, was around your point about retail and the hiring being later this year than it has been. That also fits in with something I'm not sure if you will be necessarily have a lot of visibility on, but from retail talent acquisition people, the in-house recruitment people I know, they've, like across the board, they've told me they did a much, much better job this year of keeping in touch with people who worked with them the year before and the year before that and the year before that. Their internal talent pipelines were doing a much more effective job than they had been. So it may be they were, by the time they were going externally, it was, hang on, we're in panic mode now. We've got, not enough people. And so they had intended to do it all themselves, but last minute decided, hang on, now we can't, we need to use the external supply. Just wanted to respond on a couple of those things.
I agree with you entirely. I feel like this is perhaps a bit of a personal reflection. In the 10 years that I've been in the REC, when I first joined back in, it was 2013, there was always this talk about recruitment is a people business, right? We work with people. I have never seen it more people-centered than it is now, though. And a real sense of that. You said personalization is one of your key three themes. I agree. But that has to be lived, because the ones that aren't living that and are talking to that value perhaps and saying, oh no, we really talk to our candidates, we see them through the journey, we're there to support throughout, we understand our clients' perspectives, we know those teams. And then when they don't demonstrate that, they're falling over. The ones that are doing it are really winning ground from my perspective. And the being able to forecast piece, I think the other thing that's changed over the course of the pandemic in particular is we quite often speak in highfalutin terms about workforce planning. And then people sit there and go, well, I don't really know what you mean. the recruiters that are talking through workforce planning and in terms of forecasting, okay, so where are your skills needs now? How do you see that changing? What's your progression plan for your staff? How are we going to help you with the retention of those individuals, because they are your future hirers as well? I'm interested in that as a recruiter. Thank you very much. Being able to do that piece and helping their clients forecast in quite specific terms, I think that's the value added that you can bring as recruiters today.
That's an amazing insight. Because as you were saying it, Kate, I was just thinking there's this, maybe internal recruiters might just cycle through companies too quickly for them to ever have that long-term ability. It's a lot about relationships. It's also a lot about credibility internally, etc. I think average tenure of an in-house recruiter, maybe a year, 18 months, something like that, even less in terms of the staying with a certain company. So it might be an opportunity for a third-party recruiter to come in to provide that type of analysis and that support, because if it's missing within the corporate space, then someone's going to have to fill that gap. And I think we all do talk a good game in workforce planning, but all of us would accept that it's not particularly ubiquitous, and it's certainly not at a particularly high standard. And we've got friends in industry. I'm just thinking, I can't stop thinking about Danny Hodgins right now. He's going to bang in the drum about workforce planning, but he's right. I mean, literally, it is a fact. It's down the list of things that we do. We don't do it systematically or well. So it could be an opportunity for recruiters. Kate, I love the way in which you kind of encapsulated the inversion of this year, where 2022 started off crazy peak. Obviously, we had massive geopolitical issues. We had a cost of living crisis, all these things happening. And then it really kind of dribbled away. And you're saying that, hey, maybe the start of this year will still be a little bit in that trough type area before we pick up again towards Q3, Q4, something like that. What do you think of that conceptualization of the market, folks? Do you feel that that's an accurate sort of way? Do you feel this is how it's going to work for you? Let me know in the comments below. Do you see that 2023 will be an inversion of 2022? Super interesting. Talk to us about new business formation on the agency side, Katie. Do you have any visibility of that? Because I know that you're a membership group, so the companies that join RAC tend to be a bit more mature. So it may not be that you can see, these like really young recruiters out there. So do you have any visibility of that number?
I can't give you exact numbers, but I can give you an anecdotal, a sense of what we're seeing. So we definitely saw one of the things that happened in the 2008-9 crash was the high levels of redundancies meant that for many people, they made a decision of like, what shall I do now? I know, I'm going to start up. I'm going to go out on my own. We saw an explosion in recruitment startups as a result of that recession. This is a very different feeling. We've officially labeled it a recession in the UK now, but this sort of economic downturn, this slowing down that we've had over the last couple of months, and we're expecting to see being a relatively short economic slowdown in the grand scheme of things for the rest of this year. We haven't seen that same explosion for that reason in terms of startup businesses. What we are seeing is we are seeing people making different decisions about where they put their time and their value. So is that making a different decision in terms of who I'm working for, or whether I am going to go out on my own and try this out? And there has been some of that sense for us. Less of the people that are from outside of the industry thinking, I've got a great idea, I know how to do recruitment better. I've seen that maturity come in now of like, actually, it's not as easy as it sounded. I thought I could do this. I was really good at my job, but what I could see is we were struggling to recruit. So I'm going to set up my own recruitment business. Haven't seen that in the same levels at all this time around, at least not yet. We are seeing a few more, and I think we'll see a lot more of this mergers and acquisitions side. That's the bit that's changing.
Can I ask about an extension of that? So in terms of business models, what trends are we seeing in terms of, we have a traditional recruitment agency business, which is like temp payroll business, contingency placement, permanent fee basis, exec search. There's not really an awful lot else. But what are the themes, if there's any, around alternative business models?
Yeah, so
RPO, I guess, would have been
yes,
the big one, but yeah,
absolutely. I was gonna say, you've obviously got the RPOs, and you've got a sense that the larger brands can cover that territory and be an RPO. However, I'd say where you've got a specialism and you are the niche provider for your particular subsector or occupational areas, being an RPO in that area is no longer a remote possibility to you as a business, and people are adding, I suppose, strings to their bow, if you like. Thinking about things like an insourcing provision is often how it's being referred to now. Yep. And again, not having to be the biggest company in order to offer that, and seeing it as much more of an embedded consultancy service within the client. That's one of the things. Haven't seen, although I'm very prepared to be challenged on this, big growth in TA teams in-house. And so whether that's a cyclical thing and whether that will start feeding through in time, I'm not sure.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Kate, you more or less closed the show in terms of the depth of analysis you provided. I'm kind of thinking, wow, is there anything else to talk about? We've sorted it out, but no. Let's before we let you go, Kate, give us one thing that you're prepared to make a prediction on. And when I say prediction, I want this to be specific, and I want it specific meaning two things. There's got to be a particular number of things that will go more or less, and a particular time as to when that's going to happen. So it would be something like, yeah, I predict there's going to be 200% more recruitment agencies going bust in 2022 than there were in 2023 or something like that. Can you give us a prediction as to what you see the UK recruitment market's going to be doing this year?
You're such a harsh taskmaster. I have to be very specific in terms of percentages and numbers. But I'm gonna dodge it slightly. But what I do think we will see is we have got to see more businesses, and particularly in the recruitment market, being held accountable around ED&I standards. So equity, diversity, and inclusion. There are so many that are doing the right thing. What I think, if to give you towards your numbers, is I am beginning to see, and our members are talking about this a lot more, is clients as part of a procurement framework and tendering exercises asking for there to be ways that you can validate your ED&I credentials within that tender in order to progress, and there's points being awarded. And I would say that don't just think about this as big public sector clients who have to mark off different areas in order to tick the boxes. This is spreading, and I would say that the tenders that you go through, they will want to see what does ED&I look like within your business. They'll want to know what your makeup of your own staff is, and they'll also want to know exactly how you'll move them towards a more inclusive recruitment process, so that they, at the end of the day, can judge their diversity within their workforces. And that's what I think it's going to change. We're seeing it so much more already because it's been very largely candidate driven in terms of, does this place look like a place that would welcome me? And customers are increasingly asking that. They're making buying decisions based on, does this business reflect who I am? So recruiters, they'll need to play it through for themselves as well.
We did a show a few months ago around how do you select the best tech providers, and my specific recommendation was ask them about their EDI and their own internal policies and statistics. And I would absolutely agree with you. They should be extending that to their recruitment agency suppliers as well. So it's good to see this is happening.
I would say, firstly, I laud that general trend and direction, and I would endorse it highly. However, it is not specific enough for our needs in terms of a forecast. But don't worry about it, Kate. I think it's going to be a tricky one for anybody to nail. I think it will take a little bit longer before it becomes instituted in such a way where it's formalized. I think people might still be making informal decisions along the track that you mentioned, even though they may then communicate that's the reason, but it wouldn't be like, here on the outset, this is what we're going to try and do. And then the certifications and stuff, I think that's not going to happen in 2023, in my opinion. It's going to take us, I think, beyond this recessionary period before we go ahead and do that. Okay, Kate, listen, we're going to have to let you go off screen. Please hang around for the rest of the show. We might bring you back if there's a bit more time. This is probably going to be 90-minute show rather than 60 minutes. So great to have your input. Fantastic to get your contribution here, Kate. Wasn't she great? I mean, literally, Brad in LinkedIn has just dropped off. He said, "Yeah, that was a great conversation, guys. I'm out." And I can't blame you, Brad. It's good enough. That was good enough to satiate you. However, we're going to keep going because we've got lots of different things. We're going to try and get different guests on from different kind of perspectives. Now we're going to bring on a good friend of mine who's moved to Lisbon. This is Andy Spence. He is a person that is always looking way out into the future. So this is not just like predicting what's happening in 2023, but he's looking about the future of work, particularly when it comes down to new models of how people are collaborating and also new ways in which people are trying to operate as individuals as well. Himself being a good example of this is Andy Spence. People who know or follow anything in blockchain or Web3 or whatnot, you'll know what Andy Spence is all about. Let's see if we can bring him on. Here he is. We'll see if this is happening. I think everyone can watch it on LinkedIn, but I believe it may not be linked to the event somehow. So apologies for the people who signed up for the event. But if you're on my page, you can see the show. There he is, Andy Spence. Good to see you, sir. Happy New Year to you. Hope you had a good one.
Yes, Happy New Year to you. How are you doing?
Great, we're doing very well. Andy, for the folks who don't know you, I've just mangled your intro. So can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yes, I guess I've spent my career in management consulting, working with HR functions, designing many different types of HR operating models. I started my career studying AI, would you believe, when nobody knew about it. So quite interested in the new AI products. And you currently write the Workforce Futurist newsletter, is a bit of a focus of mine.
Fantastic. And it's a great newsletter, folks. It's one of the best in the industry, particularly if you are in that forward kind of viewing. Go ahead and share the link to the newsletter in the chat stream, Andy. Feel free to do that. I highly recommend people subscribe. Okay, so Andy, your business is really about looking into the future, and that's the sort of lens that you have. Kind of zoom out, what's happening 5-10 years down the track. Can you narrow it down for us and look, unusually for you, probably shorter distance than usual, but get it down to 12 months. What do you see happening in terms of how people might be creating new models of work? What do you think is going to happen in 2023 that didn't happen in 2022?
Well, we're in interesting times, aren't we? With massive talent shortages and also cost of living and unemployment. And even during the lockdown era, we saw people developing their side hustles. People actually saying, how can I actually develop some income streams from my yoga teaching or dog walking or whatever. So I think that is a trend that continues. And I think that's definitely there. And I think we'll forget the great resignation and quiet quitting for now. I think we'll laugh at that next year with raging inflation. I honestly don't think that's an issue. But there's been a great reevaluation of the trade-offs that we all have between work, life, family, time, money, meaning, and that is a constant evaluation. And we're going to continually see people dabble in different types of income development, from joining teams, volunteering, caring, that kind of thing. So I think that's definitely a trend. And when you read about the future of work predictions, one thing I would say about them is you'd imagine that it applies to tech workers in California. But it's a reminder there's 3.4 billion people in the global workforce, 2 billion of whom work informally. So it's a massive opportunity to use digital technology to bring people into the economy. And that's a great opportunity for employers and individuals basically to make their way in the world. I think that's exciting. That's a bit of a mega trend too. Will that affect the recruiter's job next year? I don't know. As I said, that will very much depend on shorter term economic factors, I would have thought.
Yeah, fantastic.
Wow.
Adam, you about to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, you kept on the theme here. We had Kate on, who was amazing. And what Andy just said was he kept the theme going. Absolutely brilliant. Love that.
The couple of things that I thought were really interesting was this income diversification. Because one of the things that the COVID period has taught us is that we can't really rely on a permanent job. Because guess what? An external scenario might occur and totally change the game, and companies are going to have to do what companies are going to do, and they're going to make their decisions. So suddenly everyone became a lot more aware, think, you know what? We can't rely on this income stream. We need to have alternatives and start at these side hustles. And I would just wanted to know from the crowd right now, how many of you here have a side hustle that you're making money from or you intend to make money from? Let me know in the chat stream if you're doing this. Like, are you publishing a book? Are you trying to do like paid courses in some way? Have you got something that you make that you enjoy to do, a hobby that you're trying to commercialize? Are you trying to do something on the side hustle? I think the US is particularly in the lead with this. There's something like 30% of people who are employed actually have something else on the go. And in fact, if that grew to a larger percentage, they would end up going forward into that space. As someone's talking about ChatGPT into the chat stream there, let me tell you, did you read about the story about the guy who wrote a children's book using ChatGPT and Midjourney, and he went ahead and published it as an ebook, and he's obviously made money doing that.
Midjourney for the illustration?
Yeah. It took him seven days with no understanding of AI or anything like that, 7 days to get the thing out into as a commercial product. And you look at the book and you think, actually, it looks pretty good as a book. People would actually buy this. So side hustling plus AI powered side hustling.
And the tech's making it easier. All these different platforms people can work off. People can set up shops on Etsy or Shopify rather easily and start selling stuff they make. Live streaming, esports. There's tons of examples. Stop press.
Christiana said she's making earrings and selling them on Etsy. Christiane, now is your opportunity to stick your Etsy shop into the chat stream. Let's have a look at it. Here's an opportunity, folks. If you're doing any side hustles, now is the chance to do some free promo to all of these recruiters here. Okay, Nicola, you're also got a side hustle. If you're prepared to declare what that is, please do share it in the chat stream, your link to your whatever shop or whatever it is. I would guess anything is okay. I was going to say, I mean, there's even stuff that may on that gray area, whether it's okay or not, things like OnlyFans and stuff, huge side hustle for a percentage of creators that have made ridiculous amounts of money doing it. And there's another tier of creators below that will be making money that is not inconsequential, but possibly not something that they could abandon their permanent career for. And then there's people like us, Andy, writing newsletters and making some money off that. I mean, it's not like I say, I mean, most of the time you can't just quit your job, but some of the times you can get some extra money, which pays the rent, pays the bills,
And do you know what? Over 10 years, I see a lot of entrepreneurial activity in this space, right? And it might be there's a hollowing out of jobs. Let's just say that none of us will be able to really predict how that will work over the next few years. But I think there'll be more entrepreneurialism. And I wrote an article about the end of jobs that was rather controversial in this forum, but it did say that if that happens, society needs to come up with other structures to support people for financial security, lifelong learning budgets, universal income, these kind of ideas. So I think these are kind of ideas that will be discussed and tried out in different geographies over the next few years. But I think it will work with a big dose of entrepreneurialism too. And I think the tech can enable that. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic to watch in different sectors of people and different geographies.
Wasn't there a company that actually rolled out a side hustle friendly employment package? Like last year, it was a case I remember. I wish I actually made a note of it, but they actually stopped being hostile to the idea that their employees might be doing side hustles and just recognize that's going to happen. Let's create a situation where they can thrive with it. I think it was to say, if you end up deciding to do it full time, we'll be an affiliate in some way. We'll provide you with this, that, and the other. It was
throwing the employer branding aspect of that, right? So if you've got company A and company B, and one of the companies allows you to develop your side hustle, coaches you, once you become successful, you then work with your old employer as a customer, or you promote them, or you love them because they helped you. There's a massive employer branding line to this too, which is probably something that we'll talk about on this session today, because I think it's really important around attracting people into your organization in a competitive labor market.
Yeah,
I just want to give a quick tip for anybody that is doing a side hustle. or is considering it, you want to try and make sure that it's something that you do once and then it's repeatable, and it's not just constantly charging for your time, because you do that, you're going to run out of space.
That's a great tip. I was just reading the side there after Hung asked people. There's people, Mary there, who scores cricket matches, which I think is fantastic. There's all sorts of examples there. Selling e-courses, to Adam's point, it's repeatable. Once you've created the content, it doesn't rely on you shifting your bum around the world doing training sessions. It's all done and recorded on a subscription basis. So that's how a lot of creators are developing their income streams too. So rather than a threat for employers, they can embrace this as an opportunity as well to attract and develop people. I think it's cool.
All right, well, here's a prediction challenge for you. The way in which I want the predictions to work is, can you make a forecast as to how that is going to play out in 2023? So what is your prediction, Andy, whether it's on this particular topic about employer reaction to side hustling employees, or whatever you choose to think about? What do you think is going to happen in 2023?
I just don't know. It's too big and volatile, Hung. But I did think about a prediction for you, because you did ask. And as I said, my head's in the clouds in 2033. But a prediction I'll make for you is that the quality of hire will continue to improve at Newcastle United Football Club. And as an added bonus, they won't win the Premier League this year. There's my prediction.
That's a strong prediction. I would actually reverse that. I think Newcastle have a chance. It's incredible. They're not the best team. I think Man City are too good. Basically, Holland is too good. I think he's going to score 50 goals and just get him there. But Newcastle got a chance, man. They're not far away. They're tough enough to grind their way through to a position where they may actually get there. Okay, Andy, listen, stay with us for the rest of the show. We'll definitely make sure you haven't stuck your newsletter into the chat there, so make sure you do that. And then we'll go on, Adam. You about to say something?
Quick question quick question, slightly off topic, but I know it'll be quite a quick answer probably. Andy, why Lisbon?
300 days of sun per year on average. Great pastries, nice people, very colourful place. So I'm struggling to learn Portuguese, but I'm enjoying life in Lisbon.
There we go. One of many. And I apologize to our sort of Portuguese friends if you're tired of having pasty Brits coming your way.
But sorry.
It's an attractive country, and guess what? A lot of people are thinking about it. And why not? You know, there's a lot of reasons why that should be a good thing. All right, Andy, stay with us. We're gonna bring on some other guests. I think very interesting on that side hustle thing. A company that gets that right. I'd be interested to know whether sort of things like ATSs and LinkedIn's and stuff like that are going to start catering for people that are fractionally working, you know, because everything is built towards, this person's 100% doing this job. But are we starting to move towards a place where companies will be saying, look, I'm comfortable for you to do 70% of the job here, but I understand 30% is going to be here. Let's not pretend.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's a slightly different ecosystem for that type of thing, right? So people per hour and TaskRabbit and these types of things, and then there's newer versions of these which are industry focused type things.
All right, so, I agree with that. What I'm trying to say though is I think they'll merge. I think LinkedIn will produce something to allow a company to, rather than just ignore it and start saying, right, if you want to fractionalize your job, let's say you're a perm employee, Adam, and you wanted to, decide you're definitely pursuing something great. The system should reflect the reality that I'm going to change how that parameter works. Right now, it doesn't. It's all full time. All right, let's talk about recruitment tech, recruitment market, recruitment tech. We've got two of the best analysts on the planet joining us. I hope it's not too early. We've got Madeline Lorano. I think there's only one Madeline, surely. We've got George LaRocque as well. Let's see if George is there.
That's fine. It's 9:39.
I always worry, man. People want to get to sleep. They want to sleep in. I think that's okay. I struggle to.
They've both got kids. They don't sleep in.
I think they're quite old now, aren't they?
They're also top of their game as well.
I know. The thing is, with America, our American friends are so committed that I struggle to ask them to get up early, and I don't want. It's like sleep. We have Madeline here. Madeline, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on. Happy New Year. My name is Madeline Lorano. I'm the founder of a company called Aptitude Research. I'm an analyst, so we do research on HR technology and TA tech, and it's been an exciting few years.
Great to see you, Madeline. Do you know what, Madeline? I think I can hear myself go through your speakers there.
Yeah.
And I suspect everyone else will be able to do that as well. So I wonder whether you have the time to grab some headphones and stick them in.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, great. George, you want to go? Who are you?
Sure. Yeah, I'm George LaRocque. I'm the founder of WorkTech, and I'm also a market analyst and advisor in the space. What I'm known for is tracking all of the growth capital coming into the space. What I really do is tie all of that to trends and buying habits and tech adoption and look at what's coming next.
Okay, cool. I've just, I think Madeline's gone to get her headphones. So sorry for the double echo there, but it's never a bad thing to hear two times worth of George LaRocque. You know? That's like extra value. George, great to see you. Happy New Year to you.
It's great to see you both.
Whilst Madeline's coming back to us, I wonder whether you could, by the way, if anybody's not following George's material, you absolutely need to, particularly if you're interested in recruitment investment, in recruitment tech and stuff like that. It's like one of the premium things you need to get involved with there. So George, in fact, I think Madeline's back. Let's see. The headphones are in.
Is that better?
Hey, Madeline. Yeah, I think so. That's great.
Okay.
Sorry to move you around the room there, Madeline. So, okay, listen, let's have both of you talk about this, because in 2022, we had essentially a big retrenchment from the VC side, in the sense of, you know what, we're not going to keep backing these mega scaling unicorns. We're going to start looking at, you know, where the profitability is there, the investment levels didn't match 2021, but work tech seemed to almost be counter-cyclical in many respects. There was like different types of technologies within the businesses that we're in were still getting great investment, still getting great growth. Where do you see the market looking in 2022? Do you still see this VC defensiveness being persistent? And how does that apply to the microcosm of work tech? Madeline, you want to go first with that?
Sure, and George definitely would know better than I do, because he tracks and follows this every day. But I already, you know, in this month, it's January 5th, I've received 3 inquiries from companies looking to invest in different providers in TA tech. So that was surprising to me. We're 5 days into the new year, and companies are looking at this space pretty closely. Investors are looking at the space pretty closely. So I think it's going to continue. I don't know if we're going to see this careful evaluation of making sure that companies are, you know, looking like the revenue's there, that there's a real opportunity here. I think it's going to be a little bit of the same mess that we've seen for the past 2 years, where there's a lot of investment going into a lot of providers that, you know, it doesn't always make sense to me.
Right. Fair enough. Crazy money thrown in. We love
money.
it.
Madeline,
go ahead.
Can I just ask, out of interest, you said you've had 3 inquiries from people looking to invest in TA tech already in 5 days. Are these people that are experienced TA tech investors, or people that want to get into it?
It's both. Actually, 2 of them want to get into it, and one is an experienced one. And often they're using third-party firms to reach out to analysts to find out, you know, how to better understand the market.
Right.
Very interesting. You know, very funny. Some people actually miscategorize me as an analyst, and I would never put myself in a position with you guys that actually know what you're doing. Like, all I'm doing is like swimming around like at a very superficial level.
You're a media personality.
I call you an analyst all the time. I mean, you do that amazing ATS research. I mean, the predictions that you posted this week were spot on. I might even copy one when you ask me the prediction question, but I call you an analyst all the time.
I went kicking and screaming too, Hung. You're just let it take you. Let the flow go with the flow. Just
let it happen. I feel like such a fraud. I mean, I don't feel like imposter syndrome ever, but I know I'm an imposter. It's not a syndrome. It's actually an accurate description. If I decide to accept that label, I know it's not true. So if you want to speak to real analysts, you need to speak to Madeline and George. Okay, go to you, George, with this. How do you see the market? And don't feel frightened about disagreeing with Madeline or anything like that. Like, what's your honest view about how you see investment overall in technology and within the microcosm of a significant microcosm of our work tech space in 2023?
Well, I just summed up the year earlier this week, and I think everybody needs some perspective, right? And Madeline's not off the mark. It was a great year for VC investment in the space, no matter how you look at it. The reset was really getting more realistic and back to normal. I mean, we should be looking at revenue. We should be looking at team. We should be looking at scale. So here's the deal. 2021 was 18 billion. We'd never seen anything like that before. The biggest year prior, where the 2 years prior actually were about 5 billion each. Prior to that, we're talking 1-2 billion, hundreds of millions in HR tech, going all the way back to 2016. This year, 13 billion. Now, the first 2 quarters were on that $18-20 billion pace. The last 2 quarters were between 1.5 and 2 billion each, on par with those $5 billion years. And I'm seeing the same level of activity, probably even more so than Madeline. I run an accelerator for tech startups. I'll be chairing the biggest investment conference butted up against HR Tech in October, with hundreds of investors, startups, buyers, all focused on this space. There's a huge amount of interest in this, and it's going to carry forward, not at the $20 billion level, that's an anomaly. And if you take the anomaly of 2021 out and you look at 2022, or even just the last 2 quarters, it looks like a great year, like a great trend. And I would say, just sum it up like this: HR tech was never big tech, HR tech was never FANG, and it's a good thing. And now they're having their day. We're having our day. So yeah, that's the deal.
So what you're saying is obviously the big tech layoffs that we're hearing, these are all like consumer tech in large degree. They're scaling at huge, like hundreds of thousands of employees. There's no HR tech company that has hundreds of thousands of employees, right? I don't know which HR tech company has the most employees, but I would guess no more than 10,000 maybe at max in terms of how many employees they actually have. Do you know? I mean,
That sounds about right off the top of my head. But what I'm really saying is our space isn't, we're not shipping consumer products like Amazon. We're helping companies of all sizes in all markets, not just big tech. So that we're solving a different set of problems, and the job market, the talent market is more disconnected from the economy than it ever has been before. Now, will that sustain? It seems we had a great jobs report again today. It doesn't make any sense to any of us, but unemployment's down, jobs added are up in the U.S. So that's what I'm saying is we've got big problems that COVID and the pandemic in the last 3 years shined a light on. And I've got a big report coming out next week that dives deep into all of that.
I may as well go straight into a prediction on your side then, George. What is the number that HR or work tech is going to reach in terms of investment this year?
Oh, that's the prediction you want? I had a different prediction.
Oh yeah, well, right. You can.
Hold on, let me see here. I'm going to say that caution and will still prevail through Q1, maybe into Q2, and then we're going to see some pent-up demand open up as depending on jobs reports and whatnot. I'm going to say, can I say 8 to 10 billion? I think we're going to be in that range, which again is perspective. That's a huge year for this category, and we just can't we can't look at the market thinking we did 3 times ever in 21. We're going to stay at that level for the ongoing.
Yeah.
It's not realistic.
So, George, why?
Go ahead, Adam.
George, why? I mean, it's still, yes, I agree. It's still a big amount of money, but why so much less than 2021? What's like? Do people not believe in the future for work tech? Why so much less?
I'm a little more pragmatic. I don't like making predictions, so I'm a little more conservative and pragmatic. But I think 2021, when I look at data, I take out the anomalies, right? And 2021 looks like a big anomaly to me. 5 billion, 18 billion. I think work tech has emerged. I think the bigger prediction is this is the year where work tech eats HR tech, and I think we're going to see some shifts in market share. We're going to see some shifts in the players that are leading, in this case, recruitment technology. And I think a lot of the investment that went in 2021 was like products of the pandemic. How do we? I'm an investor, and I finally said I got to get on this future of work thing. And there was a lot of stupid money that came out.
Is Colin right? There's not as much actual cash as there was in 2021?
Oh, there are a lot of he may have data that I don't have, but I can say that funds have been created. There's a lot of money that's been raised. There's a lot of they like to say powder that's dry.
That's what I thought.
Out in the space, out in the broad VC space.
Okay, folks, before we continue, if you have any questions, please ask them and ask a question feature at the bottom of the screen. That's where we can get to them at the end. But having said that, Andy's mentioned something. What is the subcategory of work tech? What would you like to be? This is a question I do want to talk about. Madeline, let's go to you on this. What is the category that is the dark horse of 2023? That you're thinking, you know what? Not enough people are talking about this subcategory of work tech, but it's going to start making some noise towards the end of this year.
Yeah, my answer is not the one I think is going to make noise at the end of the year. I think it should be, and I don't think it's going to be. I think it's the contingent space. I mean, you talked about it a little bit earlier, but if we look at like 2030, and if the average organization's workforce is comprised, 50% of that workforce is comprised of freelancers or contingent workers, and we're not looking at the full picture, we're missing out on all of our workforce planning strategies, our diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies. So I think, what I'd love to see as being this dark horse, it's not a new category, but the category that we're talking about would be contingent. I just don't see that happening. I do think strategic workforce planning will be something, and I don't know if you call it a dark horse, but I think we don't see enough investment in strategic workforce planning. And if things are slowing down, if companies are going through transformation, regardless of what, hiring or retention looks like, strategic workforce planning has to be something that's a priority.
That'd be very interesting and very good news for a lot of our friends that we know, because I think a lot of people are frustrated exactly as to this situation. It seems to be an under-resourced part of the stack, if you like, that is absolutely critical. Yeah, we're not putting anything in there. So how about you, George? What is the category that you look at and think, you know what, that's probably going to be not many people are talking about it now, but they will be talking about it in 12 months time?
I did my own prediction thing earlier this week, and I've got a bullet with the extended workforce. I think, to put a finer point, and one of your earlier guests was talking about staffing. You're going to see a lot of staffing, traditional staffing models shift and become much more tech enabled and provide more services like workforce management, like payroll, and connect to their internal counterparts. We're already seeing some of that. Some are going to come at us via marketplace job boards. Some are going to come at us via more sourcing tool type approaches, but you're going to see this. You're going to see companies like Bullhorn empower their customers to become marketplaces and more digitized enablers for talent acquisition teams, things like that. It's already on its way. And I think when you're looking at unemployment the way it is, the detachment of the job market from the economy, you're looking at the skills shortage, it's right there in front of us.
Very interesting. Okay, in terms of who's at the top of the stack, the super fragmented sort of HR tech world, particularly when you look at HRISs, you look at ATSs and what have you, nobody has more than like 10% market share. Even the big organizations out there. Do you see a continuation of this fragmentation, or are we going to start to see some consolidation across the market, or is it just a natural fragmentation in the sense that different industry sector is going to require a different solution, and you're not going to get one that scales across the entire piece?
I think we're definitely going to see the same fragmentation. I think, even companies that have this idea of we want more consolidation, we want to reduce the number of vendors we're using, they're still going to RFP and replacing systems and using like a fragmented model. So I think that's definitely going to continue. And for a lot of organizations, they're kind of figuring out, Adam, you brought this up as your prediction, integration. Like we have to figure out integration. We have to figure out a strategy around automation if fragmentation is going to be what the normal situation is.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The market, our market's growing. The total addressable market for work tech, and it's driven by the emergence of more integrated in the flow of work solutions, and work tech is going to triple by 2026. I can't give you the number because it's coming out next week, but it's tripling in size. That's huge. Also, what I can say is that what's driving that is the adoption of tech downstream from a market segment perspective. We're seeing SMB and middle market companies adopt people analytics, talent analytics, and platforms. Also, emerging markets. We're seeing tech providers bubble up, but also adoption in Latin America, in places like Africa, in parts of Asia Pac that we had never seen before. And now we're seeing, existing incumbent vendors look at even the North American market in new ways, and the European market, and zeroing in on niche markets where they have leverage with an industry or language, like the DACH region or what have you. So that's going to breed fragmentation. For every acquisition that happens, there's an old line from the CEO of Slack, Butterworth, and he doesn't believe in market consolidation because every acquisition just clears the room for a bunch of other players to move in. And as long as our market is growing, that's the thing, that you're going to have, new mousetraps, maybe better mousetraps.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think you're right. Acquisition is almost like chopping down a tree. Yes, you can take away the lumber and make use of that lumber. That's amazing. But you create the space for new shoots to sprout up, and there'll be a solution for those folks as well. Very rarely, I think, is it exact. Like people have a sense of loss when there's an acquisition as well. It's like the relationship might change. There's a switch over in terms of who's talking to who. Inevitably, there's going to be attrition there. Madeline, let's leave it with you. Final word in terms of the predictions from 2023. Can you give us one that you can nail down and say, you know what, this is not the conventional sort of thing that most people say, but I reckon this is going to happen. What is that going to be?
So I think we're going to see like replacement of CRM. I don't know if that's specific enough for a prediction, but I think we're going to continue to see companies replacing their CRMs with other CRM systems and not necessarily seeing the results that they want to see. And I think that's going to continue through the year. But I'll copy one that you posted the other day, which is around the conversational interface. I think for high volume, we're going to see any high volume company at the enterprise level investing in a solution that's not a traditional ATS, that's not a traditional CRM, and that conversational interface is the only way to go.
Yeah, that's going to be very, very exciting. And we're going to be doing something related to this in 2 weeks' time, by the way. ChatGPT and its use case and applications for recruiting. There's 500 people already signed up for it. Make sure you register for it, because it basically means I got to pay more to Crowdcast in order to open up more space. Anyway, listen, great to see Madeline and George. Please do hang around. We've got another 20 minutes before we finish off. It's an extended special, so thank you so much for turning up, you guys, and giving us your amazing insight. Fantastic stuff. Two people that I think that anybody who's interested in that investment space or the analytics space, you got to kind of keep an eye on what Madeline and George are doing. Folks, we're coming. I wouldn't say we're gone.
This show's like Glastonbury with all these stars coming on.
We're nearly there. We're nearly there. But before we go, we always do this at the middle of every show. It's coming to the end of the show now, but we're going to do it anyway. We want to make sure that we continue to have this conversation even after we come off air, which, as I mentioned, is going to be 20 minutes or so. So take the moment now to take your LinkedIn URL, share it in the chat stream, or if you're watching on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever it is, put it in the comment thread there, and then connect with everyone else you see. Also put their LinkedIn URLs in there. That way you walk away with 20, 30, 40, 50 new connections and boost your LinkedIn connections for 2023. That's the minimum kind of thing you should be expecting from these shows. And by the way, if you do this every week, you're going to get like extra 50 folks every week. So you can actually use this as an opportunity to really boost out your network, which I think is going to be an important thing to do in any context, but particularly in a world that's changing the way that it is. Okay, we're going to bring on our final guest, I believe, because I'm afraid Andy Foote is on holiday, and he messaged me earlier today. He couldn't make it, which is a terrible shame. But we're going to see if Jo Avent is still with us. I'm not sure if she is, because she's been waiting a long time, and she's also not called herself Jo. There is a Jo there. I'm assuming that's you, my dear. I'm going to just invite you anyway, and let's hope. Cross fingers. It's never happened. The wrong
Can't wait.
One day, I'm waiting for for a random Joe to turn up, and then we'll see what's what. Here we go. We've got loads of people sharing connections, which is great. Andy Foote, is he back? I don't know. He's just messaged me somehow. No, he's just said, yeah, thank you. Oh, there she is, Jo Avent, the marvelous Jo Avent. It is you. How are you doing?
Is this thing on?
It is on. It is on.
Yes, I can't. Why am I having to follow all those completely stellar celebrities?
Because you're smarter than all of them, and I say that with due credit and respect to everyone else out there. But by the way, folks, people don't know, Joe and I used to work together like way back when. In fact, when I first started my first job in recruiting, Jo Avent was at that desk. And she was so nice, so kind. I would say she put like the initial steps that I needed, the bricks in the road that I needed to step forward. Jo Avent put them down. So
nonsense.
Mega for Joe. But you've also done amazing things since then. So tell us who you are, what it is you do currently, Jo.
Yeah. So thank you, Hung, firstly, and not true. I learned incredible amounts from you, but I was recruiting with Hung, highlight. Went on, did a bunch more recruiting, mostly in tech in the UK, moved to the US, more recruiting, more tech, bounced around a bit, was a business analyst on projects for a hot minute, came back to recruit, once a recruiter, kind of always a recruiter, right? Gets in your blood. Then was kind of frustrated with not being able to hire as quickly as the company I worked for then, which was ThoughtWorks. We couldn't hire as quickly as we needed to. And so started using some agile methods from tech and use those in our recruiting process. So literally we were having index cards taped to the wall with candidates' names, we were moving them physically. And then Jake, actually from my team, figured out, wait, we could automate this. I was like, that's right, Jake. We don't like the paper. So we started Talent Wall, which integrates with ATS and basically visualizes your pipeline. We added a bunch of analytics to that. We were acquired last year by a phenomenal company called Crosscheck. And together now we kind of have this recruiting data visualization, pipeline, analytics, and quality of hire, which, spoiler alert, that's a big prediction. So.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And great to see that journey. You can do it, folks. You can be a recruiter and become a tech founder and actually exit. So well done on that. People love Talent Wall, and it's great to see that thing get the just reward it did. Jo, apart from us being mates and you being super smart, the reason why you were invited onto this show and the final guest is because you wrote, I thought, one of the best blog posts in terms of forecasting that I read, or I was scouring the internet to say who's making decent predictions. Cliche here, cliche there, moralizing here. It was all that kind of stuff. But you actually came out with something where I thought, wow, really interesting, unique insights, some really kind of firm predictions. And I love the winner-loser framework you put in the sense that, okay, this is going to happen. These are going to win. these folks are going to lose. And I thought that's amazing. So I don't know. I'm going to try and pick up this blog post and share it. So I think everyone should read it. But in the meantime, can you talk us a little bit about how you came to those types of conclusions? What were the main conclusions you came through that you think actually a lot more people need to know about now because it's going to happen in 2023?
Yeah. I mean, when you've been around for a lot of time and we speak with a lot of different companies, you kind of layer this. We've seen this kind of, from back in the day when we started out Hung, and recruiting was kind of seen as this very transactional kind of almost like an admin function. And I don't think we saw it like that back in the day, but that was certainly a perception, it was transactional, it was administrative function. And certainly, thank goodness, we're out of those kind of dark ages now. But looking at that kind of transition, the kind of data maturity that we're seeing with recruiting being brought into the 21st century, we've seen all these types of similar patterns happen with sales and marketing, which they have their own funnel. And if you think about the recruiting pipeline as a funnel, it makes a ton of sense to apply those types of approaches and methodologies when you think about the data needed to get folks through that funnel and appeal to them and market to them and get them in, evaluate them, and kind of get them started. So I was thinking about that. I was thinking about.
Hang on, Joe. Let me throw. I've just shared the link into the chat stream there, so folks, make sure you click on that and take a read. Let me reframe the question because I've just scanned it myself. What were your favorite predictions? So you made a list of them.
You made a big list of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I always root for the recruiter, right? So anything where the recruiter kind of wins, that's my favorite. And I think, we've been a bit underserved. We've been the underdogs. We've been underserved by some of the technology we've been sold. We've been, the boom bust cycles. The recruiters are always kind of the first ones to get canned at the first sign of trouble. So I think my favorite predictions are the ones where we're centered and we're essential and we're strategic. And so as I think about quality of hire and all of the analytics coming into the space and how important it is for those folks who are in the weeds and have the context and can tell the stories around that data, we're so important and shouldn't and cannot be replaced. We're the kind of guardians and custodians of the DEIB, or I think folks in the UK maybe call it EDI, that all that important diversity piece. As soon as you get machine learning, AI, big data, we have to ensure that people are being protected and things are fair and ethical. And just to make sense of it, if you're hiring for call center folks, it's not inconceivable. You could hire hundreds of people in a year. If you're an exec search recruiter, maybe you hire 12 people in a year. Maybe that's aggressive. So understanding that kind of context is so, so important when we start revealing data to exec teams who maybe don't understand and think, well, this person's hired 500 people and this person's hired 12. Clearly, this person's much better. So we have to be there to provide that context and give that story.
Well, that actually is going to be a really good idea for a future Brainfood Live, like KPIs. How do you set a KPI, but how do you also vary it? Because we end up boiling it down to the brass tacks and saying, oh, on average, we think a recruiter should hire 30 people a year or something. But then you think, hang on, the person hiring a high volume, easy to hire job compared to someone who's hiring geniuses, of course, they're not going to hire the same volume, but how are you measuring them in the same way? Yet on the spreadsheet, you're going to be measured the same way. So are we at the maturity level where we can vary the KPI, or are we even at the point where a KPI makes no sense because we have to vary it and KPIs have to be standard? So, maybe there's a paradigm shift that we need to make before we're able to be actually accurate with this. I don't know. Joe, you mentioned one thing that I thought was particularly interesting was the increase of non-linear hiring. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your thinking is there?
Yeah, I think when folks create interview processes, we're kind of familiar with that, the cheapest thing at the beginning of the process, because you're not that invested in the candidate, you don't know if they're a good fit or not. So it's that recruiter screen or maybe some automated kind of questionnaire that happens. And then as a person moves through the hiring process, we tend to stack, you're not going to meet the CEO doing the phone screen at the beginning. You're going to save that big ticket, expensive item, flying someone in, CEO time. You're going to save that right till the final step. But of course, with remote working and everyone being able to do Zoom calls for much cheaper, we can kind of play with the order of things, the order of stages in the process in a way that we just haven't before. I also wonder if,
That's a really interesting insight.
Conferences
really
and our meeting, like we used to religiously go to the Grace Hopper conference, which is a massive women-centered tech conference in the US. It's phenomenal. But we would go there and have conversations with folks at the booth, and almost that could be the recruiter's screen. We would go back, encourage them to apply, go back. Well, now they've checked that box already. And in some cases, we'd also have some of the developers at the booth as well. So it's like, while you're here, meet so-and-so, who, by the way, is a hiring manager. They have a conversation. They scratch enough of that surface to kind of get boxes checked.
I love it. It's like an ambush interview. It's like, hey, you just wanted the free T-shirt, but come here, meet your hiring manager. Boom.
Strangling the pipeline.
But I think the thing is, I think what's interesting here is that the thing that you're trying to get from a particular process, you can get it in a different way, potentially in a different position in the process. Yeah. The point is you've still collected it. Like you do need to do some sort of conversational type thing. You do need to do a functional test at some point. You need to maybe meet the team and get some sort of vibe there as well. Even though we're very hostile to the idea of, we're very conscious of the idea, should I say, of bias and what have you, but still it probably is a bad idea to hire someone who everyone has a slight weird feeling about, right? So it's one of those, okay, how can we get all of that information? Traditionally, it's in a pipeline, A, B, C, D, E, in a sequential thing that's we've set out in advance. But now maybe we can play around with the blocks a little bit. Maybe we can move it around. Very, very interesting. Okay, Joe, give us one more thing before we let you go. Like, what's the thing that you think is going to happen that other people aren't? Yeah, thank you very much. People are reading it. People should read this. But one thing that basically few people are talking about, but you think actually 2023, it's a breakthrough thing for recruiting.
Yeah, I think it's quality of hire. We've spent, the last 5-10 years really figuring out how to hire faster, more efficiently, more effectively. We throw these people over the wall, and now we're in this kind of day of reckoning of like, well, all those people that we hired so quickly, were they any good? And I think, Adam, you had mentioned earlier about predictability. I think there's predictability, scalability, reliability as well. And some of those just disciplines and some of that sort of rigor is just missing currently. So injecting quality of hire as companies move back towards hiring into their workforces, every hire needs to be needs to count, and people are really paying attention to that. So I think this year is quality of hire, building on the kind of efficiency stuff that we've done before. And I can't make it into a number, Hung. I know you're going to ask.
Joe, have you got 500%. Have you got a way of have you got like a recommended way of measuring quality of hire?
No, I think it's really important, and this is kind of the cross-check thinking as well, is that each company understands what and defines what quality of hire is for their own organization. And this is where recruiters have to be part of that conversation and have to lead it and guide it and be extremely active participants in it. Because without recruiters kind of sanity checking what's going on there, things can go interesting quite quickly.
Yeah, we need to do it. Go on.
I was just going to say one quick thing. The former CEO of Dixon's Carphone once said to me that she thought that the way to measure quality of hire was to do with time to performance. So if the person achieves the expected level of performance at this period, say month 2, then that is on par. If it takes them till month 3, that is behind par. If they're at it in month 1, that's ahead of par. And that was what she'd said. And we can actually measure that within, if we're a talent acquisition team sitting right next to a talent management team, all the data is within our group, right? So we know how to do that. Bringing that data together is something we can potentially do and come out with quality of hire.
Yeah, I think if there's a constant, if the onboarding process, I guess, is constant throughout that, then you can kind of make those comparisons. But if not, it's apples and oranges, isn't it?
Yeah, true. This is true. This is true.
That's a really good point, because how has that person entered into the organization? That's different. Even first contact, I think, is different, because if someone's applied to an advert, the psychology straight away is different from if they've been headhunted for the job. And the mood is different. All of that colors the entire relationship going forward. So how can you then attribute how you do attribute quality? I think you can do it, but it's going to be super difficult. And as you say, it's customized per company. It may even be something that recruiters, external recruiters, might be able to supply as a service, perhaps, or internal recruiters step up and create provide frameworks to the business to say, here's different options in terms of how we can use this measurement. So yeah, very, very interesting. Whoever's sitting in that little space, quality of hire, I think 2023 should be in good place. Okay, Joe, listen, we're going to let you go because it's been a long old show, and I think we do get kicked off air. Like literally the platform limits me in terms of how long I can stay on. So that's going to be the case soon. But listen, great to see you. We'll definitely get you back, maybe for a quality of hire conversation a bit later on in the year if you're up for it. Yeah, we'll pick it up from there. Great to see you, girl, and happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Take care.
She's great. I mean, literally, I would lost touch for a decade until we kind of I met Joe at.
So she forgave you.
There's nothing to forgive. Nothing to forgive. But yeah, she's awesome. All right, cool. Well, listen, we've got some questions to answer. Adam, you and I are going to have to tackle these questions, mate. Let's go through them. We've got Hava starting. Hava saying, okay, why is there such a tight labor market if so many people are looking for jobs globally? What's your quick answer to that, Adam?
The jobs people are looking for and the skills that companies are trying to hire for are mismatched.
Correct. That's my assessment also. Let's go for the
University Challenge here.
Navita. Navita's actually Navidita, is going to come on to a show on global mobility, I think, always. But great to see you here. What would you suggest to increase the quality of AI and how to measure it? Adam, I think you already suggested
a way to measure. Pulse check hiring managers with every hire that's made, have it automated so it's an email that goes into them 1 week after the person starts, 3 weeks, 3 months, whatever it is. And then over a 6-month period, you'll start to get trends.
Cool. And how would you actually increase the quality of hire, though? The measurement is there, but is there any activity that you could do to kind of boost it in some way?
That's it. That's an assessment-related thing. And I'm sad to say I'm just going to have to keep telling you I don't know anything about it.
Stay in your lane, Adam. I totally agree. Okay, I think Navidita's actually asked a second question. What if a person performs exceptionally well by second month, but leave in less than 1 year? I think so. In other words,
retention's different, right? That's a different thing. Retention and time to performance are two separate things, I think.
Yeah, and one is different from quality. I absolutely agree. And you might get someone who comes in immediately amazing, 6 months, that's all you got, and then out they go. Okay, I think that's about it. Brilliant show, everybody. Really enjoyed it. I hope people were patient and staying with us all the way through. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks to all of our guests for their amazing sort of contributions. We'll be back next week. We're going to be talking about how to recruit on TikTok, I believe. So this is going to be a very exciting show. We've got people like Joe Lalji who's going to turn up and show us. A good friend of mine called Mike Manzi, who's like a big TikTok influencer, is going to join us as well. They're going to show us how actually to behave as a recruiter, grow an audience, do stuff there. Make sure you sign up to the show. We'll see you next week. Okay, that's about it. Thank you very much. See you later. Dear. That was pretty good, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was. It was a really, really great show. I loved everybody's contribution on that. I'm surprised we didn't talk about ChatGPT at all. We also didn't really talk about things like TikTok or like channels and things like that. We didn't talk about sourcing particularly. There's quite a lot of things we didn't cover, but it's such a big space that we live in, right?
Yeah, I was going to invite Irina to talk about sourcing, but she couldn't make it. I think she's on holiday. So there's loads of things we didn't talk about, obviously. But it could be a 20-hour show, really. But yeah, TikTok's happening next week. ChatGPT is happening the week after. Then we're going to be talking about global mobility the week after that. So it should be pretty good. All right, that's about it. What are you doing this weekend? Anything interesting?
Bit of exercise, take the kids to sport, stuff like that. Take Glasgow Warriors game, I think, on Sunday. And right now I've got to do the most middle class thing that you've ever probably heard on this show. And that is
clean your Aga.
No, I've worse than that, much worse than that. I've got to pay and let out the piano tuner. I don't know if you could hear him tinkling. Ridiculous. He was doing like he was tinkling away as we had the show on. At one point, he was doing arpeggios and things, and I thought, I hope you can't hear him on the show.
There we go. The problems, the crosses we all have to bear. You know, tough life, man. Tough life. All right, listen. You enjoy that. I'll chat to you next week, mate.
Cheers, mate. Bye.